All right, what's up, everybody? Looks like we are live. Cool. So I want to do this quick video, just live stream it real quick and talk about really common. Oh, whoops! Hold on. Gonna close this tab here. All right, I want to just kind of quick talk over probably one of the most common questions I get. And I get a lot of pay-per-click questions, SEO questions from investors. People want to know more about online marketing. And probably the most common one that I get is, what should my budget be? What's a good starting budget? What's a good monthly budget? How do I, what do I need in order to do AdWords? This is a real source of anxiety for people. And I get it, because pay-per-click, especially now, is an expensive channel for investors. If you're doing the whole motivated seller thing, it can cost a lot of money if you are not doing it in an intelligent way, if you're not doing it correctly, if you're not really sure how to get started. And there's a lot of kind of like nightmare stories of people like blowing through hundreds of thousands of dollars. I actually had a client a while back who came to us. He had spent, I'm not joking, hundreds of thousands of dollars over the course of a year. Didn't know where it went, just kind of flew off into the ether. And recently Google changed their budgeting policy so that your budget used to be like the maximum, like you would never go over that number, or that's kind of like the absolute maximum you hit. Google kind of changed the way they process billing. So now they are trying to hit that number. So it's not just the maximum, that's your goal. All right. So budgeting is really important if you are getting into this space. So how do you think about that? And the first thing I want to get across is that there is no such thing as the right budget. There's no such thing as a bad budget or a good budget. There's no such thing as the budget you have to have. You don't have to have anything. Well, you have to have something. If you want to do some AdWords, you're going to have some money, but you don't need a certain amount, or you really don't. And what budgets do is dictate your strategy and your timeline. So I want to kind of reframe this question, because I think people say like, well, it's going to cost me a certain amount of money. Like, how much money do I need to get into that game? But that's not really what pay-per-click is like. Pay-per-click is a lot more like investing in stocks, right? If you say to somebody like, well, how much money do I need to invest in stocks? Well, I don't know. How much do you want to invest? What stocks are you buying? How long are you going to hold those stocks for, right? These are all things that really make a difference. You could get started with 50 bucks. You could go on some real low cost trading platform and buy some penny stocks. I mean, you don't really need much money. And in pay-per-click, it's exactly the same thing, right? You don't need a certain amount of money in order to invest in pay-per-click as an investor. So how do you even begin to ask this question? You need to know a couple different things. One is you need to know what your goals are. Your goals are really going to dictate what budget is required. If you need to do 2 deals this month, there's going to be a certain amount of money that you're probably going to need to put aside in order to do 2 deals in 30 days, right? And if your goal is to do 2 deals this year, you obviously need a very different type of budget, right? The other thing you need to know is your timeline. So what sort of range of time are you trying to achieve that goal in, right? You'll notice I said like 2 deals a month or 2 deals a year. Obviously makes a big difference. So how much time do we have? Generally, money in pay-per-click in terms of your budget is going to buy you speed. It's not necessarily going to buy you a better result. It's going to buy you a speed at which you get that result, right? So if you're trying to do 2 deals, you can do 2 deals in a month. You can do 2 deals in a year. You're going to need very different amounts of money in order to do that, right? And the final thing you need to understand is your market conditions. Some regional markets, the cost to invest in pay-per-click goes up and down, just like the stock market goes up and down, right? So imagine if the stock market was different in every city that you went to. That's kind of the situation with pay-per-click. So if you are in Houston, for example, super expensive market right now, super competitive, tons of people on pay-per-click, lots of people bidding. It's really expensive to bid on clicks in Houston, right? Whereas if you are in the middle of nowhere and there's no other investors near you, it's going to be way cheaper, right? So it really depends on your goals, on your timeline, and your market. And once you know those things, you can start to get into like, well, how much money do you actually need? I do have some rough recommendations. And what I'm going to say to you is these are very rough recommendations, very, very rough. Very rough, because every pay-per-click account ends up being a little bit different. Every market's a little bit different. Markets are different day to day and week to week and month to month. Your close rate's going to be different than the guy down the street from you or the woman down the street from you, right? Everything's going to be different. So you really need to get in there and just test this out. But if you're looking for a good rule of thumb, okay, I've got a couple ones. Now, if you are in a really competitive and expensive market, I'm talking about online, not necessarily your housing market, although those two things are often connected, often, but not always, right? But let's say you're in a really, really competitive market with a lot of investors doing pay-per-click and costs are really high. If you are trying to do a deal a month, okay, generally that's going to mean you're going to want to get somewhere around 20 to 30 leads, okay? And just as a general rule of thumb, again, your close numbers can be totally different. But generally, nationally, that's kind of what we see. 20 to 30 leads typically is a deal under contract. So if you want to do that in a really expensive market, I would say I would budget $4,000 to $6,000 in your first month. Now that number should get better over time. Your cost should go down, right? Because you're improving your account, you're tweaking it, you're working with a manager like us or whoever, right? You're working with someone to make things better. But generally, that's a good amount of money, 4 to 6K, if you have to do a deal that first month, right? This is like, I am trying to guarantee it. You never can, but you're trying to like really shore up your chances, right? So 4 to 6K. If you're in a national average market, meaning competition levels are normal, pretty typical, very similar to most of the major metro markets in the United States, and you're trying to do a deal in a month, then generally you wanna budget somewhere between 3 and 5, and that's really going to try to ensure you're going to do a deal in your first month. And if you're in a cheaper market, generally you're going to do, anywhere between $2,000 and $3,000 a month. Now, that said, we've had clients that come in with $1,000 a month. I've had people that I've coached who are spending $500 a month. And when you do that, right, well, all you are doing is changing your strategy. If I had $500 a month and that's all I was going to spend and I had to do deals, well, what I would probably do is I would make a bunch of keywords that were all my competitors' brand names, and I would just bid on those. And I could probably do 2 to 4 deals a year just doing that for like $1,000 a deal. Seriously, right? Maybe 3 to 4 might be a lot, but like 2 to 3. Right? If I had like $1,000 a month, I might set a real tight portfolio of keywords, maybe literally like 5 to 10 keywords. I might try to own the top spots for those keywords and just those keywords, maximize my ads, maximize my landing pages. And I could probably do a couple deals a quarter that way, right? It all depends on your market, your capability to get in there and do that work, and then your understanding of your own numbers, obviously. But what I would say is if you really have to do a deal and you're trying to guarantee that, budget more than you think you need. But if you have time to experiment, you're not trying to do a deal like right this moment before you go out of business, you have time to really stretch out and test things, which is the way we like to work, then you can budget a little bit less. And just view it like any other marketing channel, right? You don't have to spend a certain amount of money in direct mail in order to do deals. You just got to change your list, change your approach, change your tactics. Same thing online. There's no amount of money you have to spend. What you need to understand is the tactics and the strategies and the mindsets that are going to allow you to use that budget effectively. So I hope that makes sense. If you have any questions, pop a comment or a like or whatever, just hit me up, let me know. Happy to get into it because this is a conversation I have probably literally 5 times a week, every single week. And I'm happy to get into it. All right, guys, talk to you soon. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.